The original topic for this thread is actually how to improve the self-esteem. And I've talked about this topic before. What the thing that I recommended in the past is to start with very realistic and achievable goals and start forming this new habit of constantly meeting your goals and going above and beyond those. When you repeatedly do that, it sounds stupid and dumb at first, but that kind of deep trust in yourself to be like, hey, you know what? Like, I could have easily not done all these things, but every day I show up for myself. And that kind of commitment and deep relationship with yourself ends up paying in the long run. And that's what I recommended at the time. But this comment specifically sort of caught my attention, so I wanted to talk about it. And now, how can someone improve their self-esteem? This commenter says by training your mind to acknowledge that what other people think of you is meaningless. And so this other commenter in green started talking about how that actually is relevant because we're social animals and this is a social skills subreddit. So how does that like really help you in any way when it comes to improving your self-esteem? So let's talk about this for a little bit. We all know that we are human beings with free will. We can do whatever we want. If you really sit down and think about it, we can do whatever we want. You don't have to listen to your mom, you don't have to listen to your dad, you don't have to show up for work, you don't have to raise your children, and so on, right? Because when you don't do that, the universal like order police isn't just gonna be summoned and stop your life, right? So nothing really stops you from living the life that you kind of live with wild free will. So, wild free will because, yes, we do have that complete power of freedom, but we live under some conscious sort of like restrictions and boundaries that we impose on ourselves, right? And so, socially acceptable behavior usually tends to be those like kind of confines that define what acceptable actions are. And now, to a person who is very conscious of these social constructs and, as a byproduct, how they will be perceived by other people, will have a hard time exercising their free will because whenever you do something, there's a chance that it can be seen as bad by some people. And now, whenever you do something, it doesn't matter what it is, especially these days, anything is up for criticism. And I think that's kind of a demonstration of a point there that nothing is really good in vacuum, right? And nothing is inherently bad in vacuum. So whatever you do, any action you do, as soon as you turn it into a reality, someone can judge you for it. And now, the more you are conscious of this, the less likely you are to take any kind of action at all. But what is self-esteem? As you can probably tell from my suggested approach to improving self-esteem, I happen to believe that self-esteem is related to confidence about yourself. I can do anything. I believe in my personal power and my power to execute that personal power, right? And now, when you're by yourself and you don't really interact with other people, that is kind of easy to do because it never really has a chance to be tested, so to speak. But now, enter the eyes of many other people and the opinions of many other people, especially if they don't support you, right? Now, that's when your self confidence and your self esteem sort of get tested, right? So, in the face of other people critiquing me, judging me, and telling me that I shouldn't engage in certain types of activities, do I still go ahead and respect my choices? Now, that's sort of the question that's being asked here, right? And now, the comment asks, well, what if you're self-centered or make people uncomfortable? You're gonna have a hard time finding people accept you for who you are. It's totally false that you should be yourself and not care what other people think. We're literally on a subreddit for developing social skills to improve other people's opinions of yourself. So, the part that's interesting to me here is that I think many people tend to kind of think about these situations in a vacuum, right? But the thing is, we are always having this conscious loop of whenever we engage in an action, we retroactively kind of review that situation and kind of evaluate that situation, especially if it was meaningful and requires some thoughts to digest, right? For example, you probably don't remember all that much details about what you looked in the mirror today morning when you were brushing your teeth, because that's so ordinary and it's not really like that meaningful. But the things that you do with intent, you will usually review after the effect. Or guess what? Sometimes you don't really think that these events are important, but then just now I mentioned today morning you were brushing your teeth, right? And maybe you recognize, oh crap, I didn't brush my teeth today. And then so you learn that, oh, I this wasn't in the back of my mind at the time, but now I'm recognizing that it was a special moment. So what I'm saying is, at every moment when you act, there's always a chance to kind of think back about it and reflect upon it, right? You don't just go out and make people uncomfortable for the sake of making people uncomfortable, unless that's your commitment. And so let me get to it in a bit. But what I was saying is, when you do an action, there's always a chance to evaluate. And now, come the chance to act in the next time, you're gonna have learned from the previous experience. You're gonna build upon it to the next iteration of whatever you are going to do. Now, as I normally advocate, the opportunity to exercise your personal power, this is when it shines. So, you found that the actions that you have been doing recently have been seen negatively by other people. Now, that is something that's happening. In that situation, what will you do? You ask yourself that question, and any answer is totally fine, because any answer is you intentionally choosing and practicing and following through on that commitment, right? So one possible option is, hey, you know what? That made other people feel uncomfortable, I think. And at this moment in time, I want to learn how to, I want to make it an effort to coexist with other people in a peaceful way. So I'm gonna trim that down a little bit, and I'm gonna try and listening to other people's social cues a little bit more. Now, that's an intention. And you can follow through on that with commitment, right? And the other kind of possible answer is, you know what? That did make other people feel a little bit uncomfortable. But at the same time, I've been working a lot on kind of expressing myself, because throughout my past history, I feel like I was repressing myself a lot. And so in this moment of my life, I want to exercise and I want to lean into that power of kind of doing whatever I want to, right? So, for example, many YouTube SEO experts want me to hire them because they think I'm running my channel poorly. And you know what? I get business messages on Facebook saying that I'm struggling so hard and people aren't paying attention to me. And now, at this moment in time, I want to say, no, I'm not struggling. I'm actually running this business to the best of my knowledge and ability, and I'm going to continue doing that. And now I'm going to lean into that power and I'm going to exercise that power. So that's a commitment you can make, right? So that's why I was saying you're self centered, you make other people uncomfortable. But now, if your intention is to kind of grow in that area of, I want to feel comfortable in this uncomfortable situation of other people not being comfortable with me, if that's something you want to exercise, that's totally a viable option for you to pursue. So, in the end, self esteem, self confidence, it's all related to the trust you have with yourself to exercise your personal power. Not just think about these personal powers, but to actually decide on something using your executive decision making and following through on this to make it a reality. That continued experience of doing that with yourself, keeping the promises to yourself, even the simplest promises with yourself, and sometimes the simpler promises that you keep to yourself on a routine basis turn out to be the most important kind of exercise you do with yourself. But anyway, repeated instances of this build a better relationship with yourself. And when, you know, your merit sort of, when your mettle gets tested and other people want you to do something and the world doesn't want you to do something. For example, the world makes it really challenging to succeed in a business if you don't have a lot of capital, right? But now, if you have a lot of experience in delivering to yourself, you can kind of feel confident taking that risk of entrepreneurship, for example, right? Or if you know that you've made a lot of social improvements over the years and you've gotten better at kind of communicating with other people and giving to other people without expecting anything in return, then maybe you feel ready for the next kind of a big job that requires a lot of human interactions and so to speak.